Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kim Jacobs Show. I am honored to have with me today Sean Braxton and Joseph Wooten, as well as Sean Hall will be in, as well as Javon Jackson. And as many of you already know from last evening, that if you'd like to be brought into today's broadcast, I will make sure that you have the link right now, early on, so that you'll be able to pop in yourself and be a part of this discussion. Now, please share this with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and let everybody know that this conversation is happening here on the Kim Jacobs Show. This is the link for you to be able to pop in. Make sure, gentlemen, that you share it with your friends and family as well. And we're going to get started with this episode of the Kim Jacobs Show. Today, we're talking about everything that's been happening on Capitol Hill in the DC area, and it's a hearty discussion. So grab your seats, let me know where you're from, and we're going to deep dive into this discussion. I just shared the link for those of you that are just joining. If you want to pop on the screen and share your views, you're welcome to. This is no respecter of person. Everyone is entitled to their opinions and their views. So feel free to participate in this discussion. Let's get started. All right, welcome to the Kim Jacobs Show, and welcome Sean Braxton, Joseph Wooten, and political activists that are here today. By all means, anyone else is welcome to be a part of today's broadcast. I do welcome that. The discussion today that we are having is surrounding the incidents that happened on Capitol Hill in the Capitol building on last evening, and it lasted for many hours, and we're going to talk in deep detail about that. And I want everyone to know my stance as Kim Jacobs, as an individual. I love everybody. Okay. I love people. I love God's people, no matter what your race, your religion, your nationality, does not matter to me. But I don't like behavior that does not match up with what the laws of the land require for us to do. So that's what we're talking about from my perspective today. This should not happen. And I don't think that anybody, no matter who you are and what your race is, would think that this is appropriate behavior of what's happening across the land today in Capitol Hill, in the secure building that's supposed to be secured. So let's talk. Sean Braxton, welcome. Joseph Wooten, welcome. Let's talk. Any of you can start at any time.
The first thing I had some messages on Facebook from people that I know. Some of them were there, and the way that you can always tell when people know that they're wrong is when they try to blame it on somebody else. Yeah. What I keep hearing is, it was Antifa. It was Antifa. And so I'm like, oh, so he was talking to Antifa when he asked him to go to the White House. I guess that was a typo on the Trump flag, right? So Antifa, TRUMP. And I recognize that historically, that's often what happens. The Boston Tea Party, they dressed up like Native Americans to try to deflect the wrath of the British, right? So it basically is just an admission that you know you were wrong too, right? You were there, you can't say you weren't there. So you try to blame who breached the Capitol on the Native Americans, and it's cowardly at best and dangerous at worst.
Wow. Very good. Good comments. Okay. Anybody can chime in. I'm just going to put it in this view so we can all just chime in whenever you want. And I'll put myself up in the corner over here. But any of you as panelists, just feel free to chime in and say whatever you want. We do have some specific questions that came in yesterday, and I do want to make sure that we get through answering all of those questions. And Shannon backstage, if you could pop some of those questions in, I'd greatly appreciate it. I do want to let everyone know that Congress has certified that Biden will be the 46th president of the United States. And so in the midst of everything that's happening, that is officially the case. And so on January 20th, we know that that's going to be when he's officially sworn in. So I'm making that announcement, and it's a lot of different images out here. We can go. I think a lot of people have seen what's been going on, so I would like to be able to answer the questions of our viewers. If you have questions, go ahead and start typing them, and the panelists may be able to address those for you. Sean Braxton, Sean Hall, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'll let you go.
No, you, Sean. You
go. No, you the best, Sean. So I'm gonna let you go first.
All right.
So the Sean Hall. That's how I'll differentiate them. The Sean Hall. You can speak.
What struck me about last night was the hubris by which these people acted. They, by and large, did not have on masks, trying to obstruct who they were. They didn't care that you knew who they were, which was very telling to me. And this is a comment that I hope people really understand what I'm saying. Joseph brought up a good point that way back with the Boston Tea Party, even then, people were trying to cast off dispersions about what their identity was. We've progressed all the way to 2021, where we're out in the open, where people who believe this president are out in the open with their treason, with the sedition. They're out there and they're daring you all, the American people who have good common sense, to do something. But the fact of the matter is the writing has been on the wall. Let's walk back to Michigan with Gretchen Whitmer, when they were threatening a sitting governor, where they were going to capture her and hold a trial, by which they did not have the authority to do, might I add, and they were going to execute her. When you had throngs of armed white men storming the Capitol building, those police officers did zero. And that was the genesis for this, because they already knew you weren't going to do anything. See, the truth of the matter is, the ugly secret in America, it only matters when you're Black or brown. Because if we take it back to the Black Lives Matter protest, which, by the way, was about lives, the same lives that built this joint in the first place, we were protesting being killed in the streets. And the National Guard was out in force. Here, you barely had any police presence, which tells me, when I went back and I watched the tapes and I watched Capitol Police with a baton trying to fight off people and running up the stairs, it looked scripted. It looked planned. And as I said, I worked on Capitol Hill. I know how difficult it is to get in those chambers without the proper credentials. This was a setup for a coup. Things could have happened in a way where it left us with, there was a TV show, and I think it was Designated Survivor.
Yeah.
What if they had bombs? What if they showed up with their armed guns and killed those lawmakers? It would have plunged our country, our democracy, into chaos. So I blame all of those people who continue to support this president and his antics. You all are wrong.
Wow. Okay. Sean Braxton.
Yeah. So if I can piggyback off of that, it was a great segue into what I found out actually today. So from a very reliable source that actually is a member of the Capitol Police. And I'm going to quote it because I want to make sure that I say exactly what this individual told me. Because I asked the question, I said, man, I need to know, this just looked so orchestrated and it didn't make any sense to any of us that was watching this. And he said, I'll tell you this. We were told that we are not to be concerned with Trump supporters, but more so anti-Trump protesters prior to the firestorm. We were instructed not to use lethal, but other than lethal, to our amazement. Our concern was to get the members to the holding chambers and wait for backup law enforcement agencies to arrive before working to take back the building. SMH, we are highly disturbed. That is directly from a Capitol Police officer. So when I got that, I was like, wow, man, that's what I thought, but I was hoping I was wrong.
Right.
Because this is the America that is real. This is the one that the four of us on this panel experienced. on a daily basis. This is why we don't feel safe. This is why we know that when situations occur and justice is not inflicted on the perpetrators, but more so the victims are made to look like the perpetrator. We get upset, we get angry, we're frustrated, we're mad. We're trying to figure out, where are you, Lord, in all of this, right? Because it's been going on now for 401 plus years.
Wow.
And the situation now in 2021, going on the 402nd year since we were brought to this place.
Wow.
Yeah, we're still dealing with not being able to feel safe. And that is a concern. And so I asked, I said, so let me ask you this. So I would assume that the police officer that shot the lady that died is now going to get in trouble because he used lethal force. He said no, because she was going after a member. She was trying to get after one of the members. So with all that stated, I was telling my wife this morning, I don't even know what to tell our kids at this point. What do I say? I was communicating with one of my white friends. It's like, man, I don't even know. I said, for the first time, I've got some fear, and I don't fear easily, right? Very little scares me. But my children, when it comes to the safety of my children, that's a concern. So what do I tell my children? You can't be a teenager. You can't go and have fun with your friends. You just can't hang out. But I don't know. And that's a legitimate fear that I have as a father right now, as a friend, as a brother to my brother, friend to my friends. I have more friends now that carry weapons than I've ever had before in my entire life. And I'm a former military person. So those things are difficult to digest, right, and to process. And I think that's what we're all dealing with today. My faith in the Lord has not changed.
Amen.
That's never going to change. But I will say my frustration level is much higher than it's
Wow.
right?
Yes, I can tell. And I mean, a lot of people's frustration levels are high. Welcome, Javon, as well. Let's go to some of the audience comments so that we can make sure you all mute your mics whenever we're not talking. Make sure you all know that are tuning in today that these are some of the people that are here on the panel, but you are also welcome to come into today's broadcast. So I'm not ostracizing people or preventing you from being a part of sharing your views. And if your views are opposing, it's healthy to have good discussion about topics. So you're welcome to use this link that I've put in here and come on and share your own views. So never say that you didn't get an opportunity to express what was in your heart when I'm giving you that opportunity right here on the show, okay? And so I'll pull you in. Let's go to some of the audience comments. Mona Wesley says, good morning, sis and panel. Mona, it's a great pleasure to have you on today. Good morning, Kim Jacobs and panelists.
Good morning.
Okay, yes, they finished the job. Okay, Allison Ski said, people like the Air Force vet who was shot and the rest of them do not understand that freedom comes with a price. Nearly 500,000 people dead in the United States from a virus. And this is the stupidness they're getting on with. It has made America really look, okay, I ain't gonna say that, but a country that Trump called developing relations when he took office. Okay. Now, again, the views expressed here by you all as studio audience members and the panelists and even myself do not reflect the views of the actual show itself. These are our own individual views and opinions. So thank you, Allison. Anybody want to address what she shared?
Yeah, I want to chime in and say I agree with you, Allison. I was listening to the news early this morning and listening from a global perspective. China has not weighed in on this. You do have Turkey, who, in a backwards kind of way, took us to task to say that, we're going to urge peace and calm. And of course, there were other countries who went hard and said, America, the great bastion of democracy. And I think that that's true. I think as a political science major, we've always talked about whether or not we get involved with the affairs of the world or are we isolationists. And here it is, the chickens have come home to roost here on American soil. This was domestic terrorism. This wasn't people having a good time. These people were out with the intent to incite fear, to start a civil war so that people can run and get their guns and now feel like you have to take every measure to protect yourself, which you should. But now neighbor is pitted against neighbor because you really don't know who to trust. And that is exactly what the enemy, not Donald Trump, but I'm going to go from a spiritual perspective. That's exactly what Satan wants to happen in the earth, for people to operate from fear and not even be able to hear what rational voices should be coming forth. And I think that's another thing with Trump. You got your base whipped up. Even the evangelicals, which are basically white people who are professing Jesus Christ, and that's what they are called. I have no clue why, because we're all, if you're a Christian, called to evangelize, but I digress. I've not heard from a Franklin Graham. I've not heard from a Jensen Franklin. I don't want to hear people decrying the violence, because the violence was perpetuated by people. Violence didn't just appear. There were people who did this, and they must be held accountable.
Right. Okay. Well, this is good, Sean. Great. I want to read something that one of my friends, a very dear friend of mine, and he's a Caucasian male. I've invited him to come on, and he's like, I'm not sure if I should come on, not because he's just feels like he's not eloquent enough to say all of this stuff or whatever, but he's been going back and forth with me. And he said, I don't have the education to put the things in the right words, but I can only speak for myself. I wish I had a video of my life and my mother and my father's life. Not everyone of another nationality has had an easy life, is what he said. He said, and not everyone has had a hard life. Our lives are what we make of them, in his opinion. So I'm just saying.
I could jump in on that one.
Sorry.
Okay.
Now, that's a partial truth, that our lives are what we make of them. It's like we're running the 100-yard dash, and everybody wants the finish line, but some of us have to start from 0, and some of us get a chance to start from the 50. So that part of it is not totally accurate. To go back before, the other country was Venezuela. Venezuela was the other country that was chastising us. The thing I wanted to add was, I'm one of the few people that read the Mueller report from top to bottom. And in terms of Russian involvement, Russians were laying malware to do what they did now, to hack us. They weren't, if they could have gotten into the voting machines, they would have. But what they were trying to do the most is to turn Americans against Americans. So what happened yesterday for the Russians, for Vladimir Putin, for our enemies, is like a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. It's like people that think they're being individual are just doing the bidding of our enemies. But in terms of like, your life is what you make of it, that's a partial truth. It's a partial truth, because not all of us have the same chances. I'll let somebody else go.
Well, let me chime in there as well, because again, this is a dear friend of mine that I love dearly, and I was disheartened whenever I was reading some of the things. But one thing that he said is that I grew up very poor. My mother raised 6 of us by herself with no help from my father, and so he's saying that even though he's Caucasian, his great grandmother was Cherokee Indian, and his dad's great grandmother was Black, and he's Irish and English. My thing is, and I'm again, this is Kim, the person, not the host of the Kim Jacobs Show. There are people that are of different nationalities that have had a very rough life, and so just because the color of their skin doesn't mean that they're super privileged, because I've interviewed people that grew up in trailer apartments and and they did not have silver spoons put in their mouth. So anybody else chime in too. And again, I welcome you to come on, my friend, as well. But go ahead, Sean.
I'd like to chime in.
I wanted to say this
Sean.
to the person.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. The other Sean.
Go ahead, Javon.
Javon.
No, go ahead, Sean. I'll chime in after your point.
Okay, so I'll be brief and I'll say this. I really wish that person would have come on the show. Don't make a cop out about the education, because it's not about the education. It makes it appear as though you don't want to defend the words that you already know are going to be inflammatory, because they are. Because here are the facts. Let's just go and let's research. By virtue of your white skin, nobody's going to put together great-great-grandma Black, grandpa Cherokee. They're going to look at your skin, and that alone will give you privilege. And so let's define privilege from Webster's. It is an advantage conveyed based on a number of different factors. And in this position, it's about your complexion. So when they see your white skin, you will automatically have the benefit of the doubt. I am college educated with 3 degrees. Statistically, a white woman with no degrees can come in and get a job before I do.
Yep.
Based off of what? Not credentials, but her skin. It's the same with white men with 0 education. The Black man has to work 3 times as hard to get the same position. So no, when we talk about you can make anything of your life, what makes some Black people, and I'll speak for myself, upset about that fact is I've never been white one day in my life. You've never been Black one day in your life. But when we see our lives play out on that screen, how many NFL players have been white that have driven nice cars have ever been stopped? Not a one. How many NFL players who are Black driving nice cars have been stopped? Many. Who've tried to go into elite jewelry stores and have been stopped because the people were scared and someone's coming to rob us. It happens all the time. So I don't want to hear that our lives are what we make of it, because that would lead one to believe that there are people who are out here and they're struggling and they're not trying hard. And that is a lie.
Okay. Yeah, and what about and Javon, what about the individual football player that actually went to cash his signing bonus check and had the cops called on him because they didn't believe that was really his check? Those check, things that we deal with. And Javon, I'm sorry, I just wanted to chime in on that to piggyback.
Okay,
on.
Javon.
That's all perfect. Great points. And Sean, you wrapped it up. Both Sean's, y'all wrapped it up in a nutshell of what I was going to say. But let me just add on a few different points here. Now, currently, I feel like that's the type of mind frame, unfortunately, that a lot of people have that, is unaddressed. Is they're like completely unaware to that type of mind frame that they're carrying. To them, it's okay to think like that, to be like that. But there's no equality in what Joseph was saying. Like if you have a 75-yard advantage when we're coming up from ground zero. So, that's where we're coming from. And right now, I think that the world is actually starting to feel what we're feeling. Everybody is starting to get more closer to the 0-yard line, the 10-yard line, or whatever the case may be. Right now, I think that the world is actually starting to feel what we're feeling. Everybody is starting to get more closer.
Well, something, yeah. Okay, go ahead, Javon.
Okay. But what I was saying was currently back to what my parent point is. What I was saying is this is the type of mind frame for the everyday white person that's out here that don't realize that they're privileged. This is what's being broken down right now and being brought to their attention so that they can move better in the future, because at the end of the day, we all are here. We're all are Americans. We're on this soil, whether ancestral, we're attached, came over from Africa. All white people are immigrants by definition. So at the end of the day, all of us are here now. So moving forward, how do we break that mind frame down and address the everyday common man that have this type of mind frame that's preventing us from moving forward in jobs, like Sean Hall said, and some of these like the athletes getting stopped over and all these type of things like that. So I just wanted to bring that to the table.
It comes from having conversations, real conversation. And and I think that's the problem right now is that people are scared to discuss racial issues, right? I talked about the summits and stuff that we started doing here locally. It was just to have a conversation because people were saying that, again, I was spewing hate when I was just giving out facts about things that happened over the course of history. But most people, and I'm saying most white people, don't want to have that conversation because it's uncomfortable, because it's going to unveil layers of the onion that they don't want to be released. And that's the problem that we're seeing in society, is that people want to believe a bunch of conspiracy theories rather than deal with facts and truth. And even the phrase was coined alternative facts, by this administration. That's where we are. And so we got to have those conversations.
there's a great book to read on that for white people that want to know about. It's called The Color of Law. The Color of Law is a book that shows how when FDR was taking us out of the Depression, and he's building suburbs. When he's building those suburbs, he's giving federal money for those suburbs on the condition that no black people could live there.
Yeah.
Right. So black people were, by law, by federal law, by state law, by local neighborhood covenants, not allowed to live in those neighborhoods. So that forces black people to live in overcrowded apartments, back on the farm, on the street. So when people talk about, I mean, Chicago is always a white person's way out. But what about black on black crime in Chicago? What about Chicago? Well, let's talk about Chicago. They live there because they're forced to live there. And they behave like people that are forced to live on top of each other.
Well, these are all very interesting points and comments. And again, whenever somebody does come on of a different nationality, that's what I don't know that they are like wanting to be in this level of debate or discussion too.
The color of law.
They're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. But anyway, let's take a quick commercial break.
It gets heavy in here.
Yeah, they're like, wait a minute, I ain't coming on there. And they start saying all of this junk to me. They'll be like, no. So the point is, it's varying opinions. Today we're talking about what happened on Capitol Hill. So we're going to continue that discussion as soon as we come back from today's commercial break. Today's episode is sponsored by Zamariah.com. Welcome back to this episode of the Kim Jacobs Show. And I'm so grateful to have each of you that are on today that were willing to come on and be a part of this panel discussion. Make sure you mute your mics, and we're going to go ahead and answer some of the questions that came in, and it's quite a few still coming in. But one of the questions that came in last night, man, I got to figure out how to get back to all of these questions. Okay, you know what? Let me go to here. One of the questions that came in last night was from Andrew Roberts. He said, should impeachment procedures be introduced even at this late stage?
I think it's going to take too much time.
Sean Hall says that she thinks it would take too much time. Joseph Wooten, what's your response?
I'm more with the 25th Amendment.
I am as well.
Just the 25th Amendment. Let's find 8 cabinet members and let's get him out of there, because by now we have proof that he's dangerous.
Yeah.
We've been saying it the whole time, and now we know it. Yesterday was the George Floyd moment of politics.
Yeah.
It was the George Floyd moment of politics. And like the George Floyd moment, if we don't rectify it quickly, then we have a chance to qualify it as it fades in the distance.
And may I add that Trump did not call in the National Guard. Pence called in the National Guard. So, going back to even his press secretary, they're still lying for this president. And that's a scary thing. You still have these people that are enabling him to continue to perpetrate this fraud that he is amongst the masses of American people that will eventually cause destruction. We have 13 more days with this man in office if we do not get him out of there.
Right.
So yes, 25th Amendment is the only way to deal with this at this moment because he's out of control.
Okay, next question.
Out of control.
Next question from yesterday. Does the person who shot the woman get arrested and tried, in your opinion?
I think we answered that already.
Yeah, I talked about that earlier.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure that
it won't happen because she was going after a cabinet member, or excuse me, after a member of Congress. So that was the justification. Right.
But I want to make sure that the people that asked the question, that I specifically verbalized their question. I know we already addressed it, but I want to go through each of their questions. Lotus Richey at 9:42 p.m. last evening stated, and I want to get the answer to this question. She stated, the delayed response is unforgivable. Trump is a criminal. This is, again, obviously from the person's view, and has incited terrorist acts. Terrorism is a noun. Unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. That's her comment from last evening. Your thoughts, anybody? And make sure your mic is muted until you speak. Okay. Anybody?
I think that's the reason you don't invoke the 25th Amendment. You have to remember, he's not a genius, but he is evil, and game recognized game. So to me, if I were Trump, what better way to get that pardon that they've already told you from Department of Justice that the legal interpretation is that you cannot grant yourself a pardon. So that wouldn't work for him. However, if you invoke the 25th Amendment and now Mike Pence is the president, what does Mike have the ability to do? Turn right back around and pardon Trump. So,
but he can't pardon. He can't pardon him if he hasn't been. But he can't pardon someone that hasn't been given any kind of charges and not brought up on charges yet. So and also have been persecuted.
But here we go to it, Sean. The moment he is released from being president, he is now a regular citizen, and any of these lawmaking agencies are going to salivate at the opportunity to prosecute him. And at any time prior to 12:01 on the 20th of January, Pence has the opportunity to pardon him. So to me, let's not give in to the evil genius, because I always try to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of crazy, but you have to recognize crazy. And to me, this is all very orchestrated. So no, I wouldn't do the 25th Amendment. I think there are other things that they're able to do. Perhaps you start impeachment. It does take a little bit longer, but I absolutely would not put Mike Pence in place.
Kim, let me add to that point though. The reason that I would do 25th is because of how quickly it could happen if you have 8 cabinet members. It could happen today or tomorrow if we have 8 cabinet members, and if we wait on impeachment, he still has the reins of power for 13 more days. We could have 13 more days like yesterday. That's the downside of not getting to him quickly, because 13 more days of what we had yesterday is possible as long as he still has the reins of power and knows that he's getting ready to be out the door.
But let's remember, the cabinet members are those people that he cherry picked. And if we go back and think about it, he's had a revolving door of cash.
That's the point.
And so now, do we really think that there are 8 people who were seated by Trump, handpicked by Trump, that are going to turn on him? I think not.
Right.
I think
probably not.
Absolutely not.
Probably not. But if at all possible, we definitely need to ask that question.
Let's go to the next question from our studio audience member, June.
That's
Griffith.
a good point, though.
Where were the nation guards? Where are the National Guards? Because it was not Black people. The end.
I think the answer's in the question.
Yeah, the answer's in the question.
Exactly.
That is the reason why. I mean,
there's a lot of perspectives out there that say that if we would have stormed the White House like that, as soon as we stepped foot on the lawn, we would have been shot dead.
Listen,
there's a lot of people that think sentiment out in the streets.
But this is where I take the same stance that nobody should be able to storm the building at that level. That should just not be allowed, and it should not be tolerated by any race. It doesn't matter what the rationale is surrounding it. That should not be allowed, because the safety of the congressmen, congresswomen there should have been able to be protected, and they should not have the fear of being able to go to their jobs in government buildings that we all pay our taxes for. to
It
have
was on. It was as well as the officers. It was a lot of officers that were told to stand down. That was in fear of their lives. I mean, we saw the officer running up 2 flights
the
of stairs. So
and he was
Right.
like with a baton.
They were told not to use lethal force. But you got to understand,
Yes.
the precedent had already been set. Oregon, it was already set. They took over a compound for a month. And then once they were persecuted and got out, they were flown back on a private jet. Michigan, they stormed the Capitol. They were going to kidnap the governor. So let's just say none of this was a surprise to any of us because the precedent had already been set. This was no more than as we said.
Well, I mean, well,
I'm not
yeah, you as you said, say
right now I'm getting ready to get emotional and I'm trying to maintain my cool. So let's go ahead and it's frustrating to watch because
very frustrating down here.
We know what he's capable of doing. And going back to what we were talking about, 13 more days of this, it's a concern because what is he capable of doing in 13 days?
Knowing that he's getting ready to head out the door. Yeah,
he's scared.
So,
You got to understand when people
really in the catch-22. We're in the catch-22, 25th Amendment.
we've been in the catch-22 for 4 years.
the president has special
We're waiting
codes
now to
that
see
can
what's going to
launch
happen with
nuclear
this
war, right?
terroristic acts in the next 13 days.
Well, he has the nuclear codes, but he's not carrying the football. And I do think that while that person does have an allegiance to do what the president says, I do feel like in this situation, some other things will pop off. But I just, in the back of my mind, I keep thinking about Black people. And I think about the people who are not Black who are watching the show, who may be saying, oh my God, we're so tired of hearing this, but if it would have been Black people. So I want to invite you to go to Google, my best friend. Sorry, Cam. Go to Google, and I want you to Google the MOVE operation in Philly, right? Back in the 60s, where they were upset with these Black people who would not come out of their homes. And what did they do? They dropped a bomb on these people. It destroyed 3 city blocks. You tore up homes that had nothing to do with the people that you wanted. You went in and infiltrated the Black Panthers and you killed Fred Hampton. So what we're saying is not an anomaly. It's not made up. It's happened. But the truth of the matter is most white people do not see the violence that this government perpetrates against Black and brown people. And being Black, we are sensitive to it because we see it. We experience it. When I get stopped by a police officer, my hands are definitely a 10 or 2. I'm definitely shaking. I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to get out of here? I have friends who never had that experience and they never will. And you have people who say, well, Black people, these folks wouldn't get shot if they would just listen to the police.
They would just
comply. And some people have said the exact same thing about the white woman who was killed yesterday, that she'd still be alive had she not broken in. Now, I don't think that anybody deserves to die because they're breaking in. I would hope that you wouldn't have to die. And yet at the same time, it has a different sense, or as we say around the way, it hits different when a person is unarmed and when they're Black and the perpetrator is the police. We keep seeing it.
But Ivanka called her a patriot. She called them patriots. Now she deleted the tweet later, but her initial response was, these are patriots that are bombarding the nation's capital. Patriots. Let's look at the nomenclature that's used for them versus when we stand up for our rights. Look at how Colin Kaepernick was categorized and characterized when he knelt peacefully by everybody. There were people, it was hard. I honestly was having a hard time going to my church. These are people I love and I adore. But some of the things that were said that I read on social media about a man that was peacefully kneeling because of the fact that we are trying to gain equal justice under the law. That's all we want. We want to be treated like equal citizens that we are under the Constitution. But these people are considered patriots.
Right.
Not illegal, not insurrectionists, but patriots.
Well, that's a testament to where the state of the mind of the world is at right now. You know, like I always explain this theory that I have. It's like a cowboy and redskin theory. You know, like I'm team red, I'm team blue. You have to be something, and we have to always be at a versus instead of like any type of collaboration, collaborative talk, any type of unified talk. We don't preach and practice that. But here in America, everything is I'm from Virginia, I'm from Maryland, I'm from New York. I represent the Giants. So we take that same sentiment in everyday to day life. And you can see that a lot of people just don't have no clue of what we're going through. They're completely oblivious to all of that. They've never been around it. Their black friends are maybe only showing them a certain aspect of themselves. Because, you know, like you say, you have to be different people for different settings or different scenarios. And especially if all their friends are coming from a corporate setting, then they're only going to see the corporate black person. You know, they don't know that person for real. So, you know, these are things that's going
great
to
points
be
that you
faced
guys
day to
are
day.
Let's go to a few more audience comments because quite a few are coming in and I don't want to miss the opportunity to get some of them answered, okay? And Lotus Roche says, we are continually on guard like never before because we never know where the threat is going to come from. It is unequivocal that the leaders of the country must demonstrate, embrace, and believe in a higher standard than that's currently set. It's most disrespectful of the behavior of the current former president, Trump, and those that support his superiority complex and defiance. We must move into action. We have work to do. Talk is cheap. We must show actions rather than empty words. Anybody want to address that? And let's address them quickly so we can go to as many of the studio audience comments as possible.
Well, as we talked
I'll
about
jump on that
yesterday, we got
first.
to get active in our communities, period. Right. We have to do the work at the ground level ourselves. We cannot wait for our legislators to do it for us. We have to put the pressure on them to get it done.
And I'll add that the call for action is a call for knowledge, because if you don't know, you'll take bad action. So
Okay.
learn what's going on in your
Absolutely.
community, learn your history, learn your current events. Knowledge is power, and it'll fuel your action in the right direction.
Andrew
And let me
Roberts.
just add on one perspective of that. Just make sure you start in the family. We have a great wealth of knowledge within your family.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the family. We have, over the last decade, the same thing that I heard is when grandma died, the family fell apart. Okay, that's been the case for all the black families across the United States. It's time to retract that, get back to the root, and let's build from there.
I love it. I love it. And that's for every nationality, everybody. Okay. Trump said to the protesters when he finally spoke, "We love you." He did not condemn them. It was almost as if we were looking at the very fine people scenario all over again. That's from Andrew Roberts.
100% on point.
Yeah, no doubt.
On point.
I agree with all of that.
He did not condemn. And then he said somewhere in there, you know, go home. But come on. The damage had already been done by that point.
Ivanka called her a patriot, and her father told them that he loved them. Kaepernick lost his job.
Listen, I think with Colin Kaepernick and I was upset about what happened. There's a valuable lesson there, and some people are not going to want to talk about it. He's not in the NFL. He has pivoted. He's probably making off of endorsements more money than he might be making in the NFL now, because the NFL is tenuous with injuries and what have you. You don't know how long you're going to last there. And so what I see now that he's able to do is something that a lot of black men who are in that National Football League are not able to do, and that's to pivot to your purpose beyond that sport. So while he's still not in the league, I look at everything that he's able to do. And honestly, I say, run, Colin, run, because you are free. You are free from the persecution of people, what they think of you, what they want you to do and be. He can say whatever he wants to say and still get a check.
Okay. Well, Bunny says Trump said in the past that if he lost the election, his people would riot. To be foretold is to be forewarned. So what Bunny is saying is that he already said that this was what he was going to do, and that the people that support him, this is what's going to happen. And these are words from his own mouth, that this is what's going to go down, and it's what's going down is what she's saying.
Bottom line is, he's been setting this up for years. We already saw this coming. None of us are surprised by any of these actions.
Right.
He said it, even when he lost in the primary to Cruz, he wanted to cast that out because there's no way he could lose. Come on. He's been setting this up for months, if not years. He knew this was going to happen. He was worried, and he set it up so that just what happened yesterday would happen.
Wow,
yet,
exactly. Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, and yet, all of the blame can't fall at the feet of Trump, because guess what? In 13 days, he's out of there. But who's holding these senators accountable?
Yeah.
These congressmen accountable, who after last night's violence still got on the House floor, the Senate floor, and raised stupid objections that, guess what? It didn't matter, because Joseph Biden was always going to be seated. They were going to go through with the certification. And all of this showmanship was to show the American people how little they understand about government and the policies. Because if you understood, you would not have tripped off of, oh my gosh, they're raising objections. They couldn't do anything with it.
Wow.
Right, exactly. And
So,
all they
I felt
wanted
like
to do was
last
make
night
sure
when
they
I was
kept their base. They had to keep their base for the upcoming midterm election to show, hey, look, I was still there with you. I still had Trump's back. So I objected, even though they knew it was a moot issue. There was nothing they could do, but they still went ahead with it because they only cared about ensuring that base said, oh, hey, Joe Smith over here still voted or objected against it. So I'm going to still vote and cast my vote for him because he's still one of us.
Well, Mona, go ahead, Javon.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, last night when I was watching the Senate, it seemed that like they was giving a false sense of hope more so than addressing the current issues that was going on yesterday. They just wanted us to walk away with like, oh, everything is okay. This is a normal everyday situation, and it just didn't really feel like they was really addressing what was there.
Well, they weren't supposed to. That's another part of understanding how our Senate works, how our government works. Last night on the floor was not the place to address any of this. It was a formality. It was a ceremony. That's why Pence released a statement about why he couldn't do what Trump was asking him to do, because he was not allowed to address that in that forum. Their formalities in place for a reason. And so I think that's important for the American people to understand too, that, well, why didn't they get back on the floor and talk about that? Because that's not what they were there for. They have to do the job that they were tasked to do.
They were there for a certain agenda.
But
we wanted something to address, and even if it was a special conference, which did come later, but that's what we was expecting from there. So I just kind of walked away like, I get it. They was in there cracking jokes and trying to crack dry jokes and do different things, but it's a lot of tension in the air right where you are, right outside your window right now. So
Okay. Well, the next comment is exactly. She called them patriots. That was Mona Wesley's comment, and okay, we'll put that up, and then I just want to show this for a second because I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I keep saying, to me, and I can only say for myself, how can anyone look at these images, anybody, not regardless of whether you're black or white, at Capitol Hill and think that this is okay? Is this appropriate because of who you support in your presidential campaign selection? This is way beyond black and white. This is not something. This should not be happening in our nation. We have to be more united than this, from the perspective of protecting our government and allowing democracy to prevail.
But here's the thing to remember about this country, is that this country was founded on black people being down here, and black people didn't stay there. And every time black people move forward, we had some form of what happened yesterday. Yesterday wasn't the first time it happened. Culture is moving forward. Every time culture moves forward, violence comes. James Meredith goes to college. He has to go to college with the National Guard because that's a symbol of black people moving forward. White supremacy didn't plan on a black man ever being president.
Right.
He was president, violence. Everything is flipped because black people are moving forward. I mean, culture is moving forward. There's nothing, the only solution that the power structure has is violence, because you're losing the cultural battle.
Well, it's the DNA. It's the DNA and the fabric of this nation is being compromised at this point, and they don't like it. They don't know how to deal with it. And I've always said, people that are scared, look at any animal in nature. when they're scared, they react in a different manner. My dog is the most loving, caring dog, but once that dog gets scared, it becomes the wolf.
Right.
Yes.
That's in its DNA. It's a loving little dog, sweet dog, but it becomes a wolf when it's scared. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the wolves come out because they're scared. They're terrified. They think that we are a threat when all we want is equality. We don't want revenge. If we wanted revenge, there'd be 41 million really, really bad people running around here doing some really nasty things. And we're not doing that. We just simply want equality. But equality to them means that we are going to be above them.
It should not be an us versus them mentality here. Sean, go ahead.
But I want to change that. I want to challenge that. I don't think that what we want is equality. Equality means that we're both here. And so even my 8-year-old daughter, if we were to have equality, she's shorter than I am. So she doesn't want equality. You want equity. Equity is each person having what they need. And that, I believe, is what Black people are striving for. Because if we are running a race and you are running around the track and you're already on your 55th lap before I start, we're not equal. We're not equal at all. And so what I see is that white people in this country still have a very visceral reaction to the founding of this country. And you're still upset about Black people bringing it up. But I want to take my cues from the Jewish people who said, never let them forget. Why? Because if I let you forget, we will repeat the history. And so what I see with this COVID-19, just to kind of make a weird analogy, but I looked at this yesterday and I heard some things. COVID-19 has been a great equalizer because we're all in isolation for a sense. And so with white people, I've noticed some of the ones who don't want to wear masks, they keep making this assertion, I'm free, I'm free. You don't like the fact of feeling like you don't have the freedom to do what you want to do. And what I, as a Black woman, would say, welcome to our world. This is how we feel every single day. Everything is measured. Even me talking about this on this show could be a risk to my business. But guess what? It's a risk that I'm gonna take, because if you don't like what I have to say, you don't have to do business with me. But we shouldn't have to be afraid to measure our tones, our reactions based off of what somebody might do to us. Yet that is how we have been conditioned by you all with violence to respond.
And this is you all is not every you all
is not everybody. It's not every, it's
you
not,
know, so let's just like when we say you being understood, right. It's not every white person. Okay, so one of my friends said, this is why this world will never change, because everyone always thinks that someone else has it better. It saddens my heart to know that this is that nothing will ever change as long as we keep looking at each other this way. So it's like, how do we come together with people from varying nationalities, races, and religion? Because it's like we all, depending upon the color of our skin, have our own viewpoint of this is how it is, and this is the bottom line of how it is, versus it being somebody answer.
Yeah, I would say this, Kim. You know, like right now, where we are currently is in the Black culture. We can join hands. We have been joining hands since the 60s, the 50s, and with the movements, different movements, civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, whatever the case may be. Now, what I say is this: it's time for us to recollect our efforts, start ground zero with what we have and our resources that we have to empower ourselves, and stop focusing so much on how we can collaborate, because the collaboration is already in place. The system is already there of how we're going to collaborate. We can't change the system and make it better as if we bring more equality, or if we bring more to the table, then the system is just magically going to get better for us. So right now is what I'm saying, we have to scratch that mind frame, start from the beginning for ourselves, recollect ourselves. Just like I made the point earlier about going back to the family. Collectively, we have to go back to our Black culture, spend our dollars wise, do business with each other, build a network. These type of things that can actually make us move forward. I think June asked the question earlier, and she was saying like, you know, she's tired of the everybody talking about it, and what's some actionable things that we can do. These are the things that we can do. Look into land. In the next year, if everybody try to go buy, forget of reparations and any of those things that are there. If they come through, great. But in the meantime, if we can go actually put people in place for gardening, put people in place for acquiring different buildings. It's a lot of rundown cities, a lot of places that we can formulate these corporations and go acquire this land and build it. And we need to start there. Like Sean said, start building our equity.
Let's take a quick commercial break, Javon. Those are great solutions. Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll come right back to continue our conversation here on the Kim Jacobs Show.
I'm attorney Kenneth D. Snow, and at the Snow Legal Group, justice is our job.
For more than 20 years, Attorney Snow has been fighting for justice and winning cases in the Carolinas by providing aggressive representation in criminal defense, domestic violence, family law, serious injury, and wrongful death. If you've been injured or lost a loved one in an accident, including tractor trailer or rideshare, you need the Snow Legal Group by your side, fighting for justice and fighting for you. Visit snowlegal.com. Call 704-358-0026 for a free virtual consultation. Located at 6827 Fairview Road, Suite D in South Park.
Welcome back to this episode of the Kim Jacobs Show. And Sean Braxton, he had already told us in advance that he had to be on a Zoom at noon today. So we thank him for his participation. And I want to make sure, because there's been so many comments and questions that's come in, and I don't want to miss any of them, but I hope we can really get to all of them. Yes, Move Operation, they bombed us again. Allison Skeet said Move was like what they did in the Does anybody want to address this? Go ahead.
Nagasaki,
I know, but I'm saying, did anybody want to say anything about this?
it wasn't. It was the same thing that happened in Black Wall Street, the same thing that happened in Rosewood, the same thing that happened in St. Louis. When Black people move forward, historically, there's violence. That's not new.
And I do think that perhaps is one of the reasons here as people look to see, well, what are Black people going to say about this? See, here's the interesting thing. Black people don't have a problem calling out wrong.
Wrong is wrong.
Wrong is wrong.
What happened yesterday
is
wrong.
The same response from many of the prominent white people who have the ear of the masses. We don't see that, and you've got to call wrong out. Someone was saying, I think, Kim, you were saying that a person was saying that's why we're never going to get anywhere because somebody's always thinking they have it better than someone else. Avoidance doesn't get you anywhere. I am better off than somebody who may live in a third world country. I am better off than somebody who doesn't have a home to sleep in. I am. At this moment in my life, I am better off than them. And I'm not admitting it to be brash, not admitting it to boast. It is acknowledgement. But that is the one thing that we will not do in this country is acknowledge the past, acknowledge the heinousness that was slavery, that was Jim Crow, that was lynching. That is redlining, that is redistricting. Right. Acknowledge it so that we can move on. Because if you don't acknowledge it, we can't go anywhere.
And if you don't have knowledge, you don't recognize that with Germany and their Holocaust, Germany teaches the Holocaust in painful detail, but they don't honor it. There's no statues to any SS soldiers.
Right. Hitler,
the grave that he used to have, they poured concrete over it. There's a street in an anonymous place. They drive where he used to be. The tributes that they do have in Germany are to all of the millions of Jews that were killed. And they have little plaques that makes you bow to look down and read their information. Meanwhile, here in the United States, yesterday, somebody was complaining about the Confederate flag that was in the Capitol building. And I was like, the Confederate flag, it just matched the 11 Confederate statues that are in the rotunda. You know what I mean? Don't be mad at the flag if you weren't complaining about the statues.
Right. I understand everything you're saying.
But it takes you knowing some things. It doesn't just take your heart being in the right place.
Right.
It takes you knowing some things.
The knowledge.
Yeah, it takes you knowing some things so that your actions are well directed. Because too many of us are active but don't know nothing. Which I won't say don't know anything. Don't know enough. So yeah, we're active this way.
Right.
We're active this way rather than being able to educate somebody.
Rather than being this way is what we need to do. Let's see. Andrew Roberts said it is more risky to have a man who has his hand on the pulse of a nuclear bomb remaining in office for an additional 2 weeks, as opposed to invoking the 25th Amendment and taking a chance that he gets pardoned by Pence. That's when you were making that point earlier. John,
I will address that, Ron.
Go ahead, Sean. I mean, Frank. I mean,
no, I was just gonna say, Sean. Sean, I'm sure you could bring it up to the speed on it. But what I was gonna say, just real quick, just back what we were saying earlier, that's the catch-22. If we evoke the 25th Amendment, then he has his people in place. If we impeach, it's just going to delay and extend out the whole process. So even further than maybe the 13 days, possibly. That's the part of it that we're not prepared for. So at this point in time, right now, what do we do?
One of the
How
things
do we address this? Like, what's the best course of action for this next 13 days? And Sean may go ahead and take it with your political and informative information that you have.
Sean, you go first.
I don't want to play Pence close. People like that, I've seen them all my life, where they put on one face, but they're really somebody else. He's been waiting for this for 4 years. Be very clear that he is Donald Trump. He is Donald Trump. He's not sat at the feet of his master and not learned some things. He's not planning for the next 4 years. I have no doubt in my mind that the two of them have sat down and orchestrated this point here today. The thing of it is, like you said, is what do we do? If I move this chess piece, what happens? If I move that chess piece, what happens? And the truth of it is, without a good understanding of the game that's being played, we're all pawns.
Well, let me take a moment to say this as well. We're going to end today's broadcast. I'll go until 12:15, and then we're going to go ahead and end. That's an extended amount of time, but I do want to make sure that we try and get through some more of these audience comments. Facebook extends Trump ban indefinitely over incitement of violence. And this is according to news sources. Andrew Roberts helps with the back office of our show, so he wanted to put that point on. June Griffith says, sorry, Sean, I do respect everything that you say, knowledge sharing and all, but I differ on the statement about breaking in. If you are breaking in, whatever happens, happens. No pity for the person, in June's opinion, that experienced the death, which of course,
what I will say is that has to go back to the Castle Doctrine, right? And so when you start, I was once a law student, and yeah, you think breaking in is just breaking in, but not when the people they're not meeting you with the same force.
Right.
That can be an issue. And so I don't know what's going to happen to the Capitol officer. I pray that they'll say, oh, he was doing his job. He was protecting this person as he should. But we can't just say, oh, I'm going to meet force with meet force. There was William Raspberry, who was a famous journalist who lived up in DC, and someone broke into his home and he shot him. The person was unarmed, and they really wanted to bring him up on charges. And everybody was up in arms because they said, well, that man broke into his house. How did they know he didn't have a gun? Exactly. You don't know, but yet when you ferret it all out, you say, well, wait a minute, could this person have lived? What do we value more in this country? And on paper, and it's just on paper, we're supposed to value life above property, but that is not the truth in this country.
Okay. My mom said, good morning and welcome to all of the panelists. This is a great show. Mommy, thank you so much for being on today and always supporting. We have to adopt the Stacey Abrams mantle and focus. Now is our time.
Yeah.
It's important to get the moment right. Otherwise it fades in the distance and they qualify.
Right.
I agree with you, Joseph. Mona says, exactly, Bonnie. We knew and the authorities should have been on point. No surprise.
Listen, had there been a rap concert up the block, from the White House, it would have been surrounded with National Guard. Right?
That's true. That's
good
true.
point. All good points.
I mean, if black people had been up the block in mass in any capacity, there's no way a bunch of black people could have walked into the Capitol building.
And that's not race. That's not racial one way or the other, because we already know that would not be allowed. Anybody, no matter what color of your skin, you know that if that many African American black folk were congregated together for whatever the reason, and then raising flags and busting buildings and stuff, Y'all know
You would have
all
never
know.
got the opportunity to bust anything. You can't even have 3 Black kids sit together in the cafeteria without them thinking that you're plotting and scheming and you're a gang.
On the corner in front of the convenience store, much less the Capitol building.
Allison Ski said
So
Kaepernick.
that's talking to.
Go ahead, Javon.
No, I was just gonna say. So that's talking to the same mind frame that perpetuate, like what we were saying earlier, like why people need to become more aware of things, because every day, day to day, they're still perpetuating that same act. It was already ingrained for them to. You are behind me. You're my property. You're whatever mind frame that people come from in their different cultures. And it hasn't changed, and that have to change. They have to break that somewhere within that, break that cycle somewhere within their culture, because we're here. We're not going anywhere. Matter of fact, we're selling. So, what's next?
Wow. Okay. Lots more comments came in. So let's see. Kaepernick is basically getting the last laugh, is what Allison Skeet said. The hypocrisy of denigrating people who took a knee pales in comparison to the desecration of the Capitol building. So there's no comparison, according to Andrew Roberts. Let's see more comments. Excellent points, Joseph. Chuck Schumer just called for Trump to be removed from office. That's another like breaking news thing since we've been on, according to Bunny. I haven't been able to look, obviously, while we're on here. This has been an excellent discussion. Exactly. What do we do as a country for the next 13 days? And go ahead, Sean.
I think we need to really have the hard conversations with people who don't look like each other. I'm going to go back to Kim's friend who didn't want to be on the show. This is a great time. Listen, as a Black woman in this country, I've got to know how to flow in every arena with Black people, Asian people, men, women, men and women who don't look like me. So no, white people, you don't get a pass when Black people are saying, if that were us. You know what? What you want to do is be an ally and say, you know what? Let me go and talk to my other white friends and let me help them understand why this wasn't right. Because for me to say it as a Black woman, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm irrational. But for another white woman to say it, it makes sense because you're speaking her language, if you will. You're of the same ilk. She sees you different. So these next 13 days should be filled with self-reflection. We should be talking to each other to break down this mindset of we're coming to get your stuff. Nobody can steal anything that you don't own. And this presidency is on loan every 4 years. Every 4 years. The democracy should be static. But we see now that it is very fragile. It's very tentative, and it is based off of all of us, we the people.
And the interesting part that you say about that, Sean, is that it's really operated as a well-oiled machine for many years, that it's a consistent process, an exchange of power. This is what happens. This is how it works. This is a democracy. The people speak. Here you go. You're now the new president in charge, the president-elect for that time frame or whatever. So it's just a constant, well-oiled machine. So for it to be disrupted in this way is really throwing our democratic process up in arms, because it's
which
like,
means we can't move forward on a gentleman's system anymore. This only works, Kim, by respect. If I respect you, do you ever listen to how the congressmen and senators address each other? The gentleman from Michigan, the gentleman from so-and-so. There's respect. But what do you do when someone doesn't respect you or your process, your way of living? Now we got to go guerrilla warfare. And that's what we're seeing in these United States.
We need a lot of prayer across our land. And I know, I pray every time before I go live on my show. And I always pray in Jesus' name. But I always tell my guests that you can pray in whomever's name you believe in. But anytime I pray in Jesus' name. So in Jesus' name, I'm asking that the Lord overpowers and overtakes this land and overshadows this land with love and unity and some synergy and some compassion, because it's too much hatred across the land. And with this prevailing, you can't have a positive outcome, in my opinion. So we have to join forces in some kind of way. Let's see what Linda Poplin said. I wish we could all get along and we all bleed the same. Great show today and great panel discussion. I absolutely. It's awful what is happening in DC, and it's just awful. I pray for peace and unity.
Well, Linda, I think that's fine. That everybody is different. You know, we're not meant to be the same, even down to our individual DNA. We all are created different and all created equal in the sense of religiously. But when it comes to different things, as far as like socially, we have to, or politically, we're not the same.
We're not.
We have to figure out we're not the same. We're here. If we look at it, we're so behind that we have to do something dramatic to get us in a better place.
I don't
We
think
have to
that
do
I've
something
seen
to catch us
anybody
up.
do anything as dramatic. This is just my own eyeballs seeing what's happening.
I'm not saying dramatic in the sense of like going to the street, guns or anything. I'm talking about like reforming and reshaping our minds. We have
I
to
love it. I love it.
get out, toss the old system and the old thinking out the way. We have to educate ourselves, like Joseph said. We have to get that knowledge that's going to be current to today, and all things that's going to move us forward. And I'm not seeing that. Like right now, I'm seeing a lot of us bickering between our own culture. And
Right.
how do we stop the bickering? Okay, well, if you support Trump, don't call me no more. If you're blue, don't call me no more. Whatever the
I don't
case may
feel
be.
that way.
Right.
I don't feel that way at all. I have
But it's
friends.
out in the streets, though. It's a lot of people that's doing that every day to day in our culture.
And yet I
You
can
can support whoever you
understand.
want
I
to
can
support. Doesn't
understand
mean
some of it.
because we're on opposing sides does not mean that we cannot find common ground.
And what
So-
people struggle with is what we saw yesterday. Some people agree with. And that right there is going to be a non-starter for a lot of people. If you agree with what you saw yesterday, where do we have common ground? And so
I've seen that already on my Facebook this morning, Sean. Sorry to cut your point off, but to add to that, I seen that on Facebook this morning already. If you agree with what's going on in this country, then take yourself off my friend list.
But
One of my guys said that. I was like, okay.
But this is how
So it's happening.
This is how I handle it, because I'm as a musician, what we do is we do what we do by knowing our audience and finding a way to relate to them. So oftentimes people that don't think like me, I'll make their point first. I don't agree with their point, but I let them know that I understand what that point is. And then that person is more likely to listen to mine, as opposed to just coming out with historical perspective of why you're wrong. That person is already shut down, and we need to do more than that, because there's a lot of people not of color that would love to do the right thing but don't know what to do and need the answer from us.
And someone wanted to come on, Mackenzie. She wanted to share she said from a white perspective. That's her own word. So I'll let Mackenzie
give it to us, Mackenzie.
share her perspective.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mackenzie.
So, my whole family is very Republican. That's just, how I was raised. Everyone in my family, but like I'm a registered Republican. I do not agree with what's going on. Like, that's just, it's chaos, absolute chaos. Having someone come, I you can vote for who you want to vote for. That's all thing. That's the beauty of America. But the second you storm the Capitol and, regarding like COVID's a real thing. Not wearing masks or even caring about anything and hurting people, that's not okay at all. Like my dad said that there were people in Nancy Pelosi's office. Like that's not okay at all. And then, it's not okay. And so I actually had a conversation with my grandmother yesterday, because she said, this is what's been going on. This is the uprising. I said, there shouldn't be an uprising. That's the, whether or not everyone wants to admit it, like Republican wise, Biden won. Like, you did your part. You voted for who you wanted to vote for. He's going to be the next president of the United States, whatever. But it's not okay going up to the Capitol, and harming people, harming police officers, putting people at risk, with COVID going on. The numbers are crazy. They're going up every day, putting people at risk, harming people, harming yourself, harming your fellow Americans over something that, you can't control what's going on in the country. You did your part, you voted, but going up and trying to storm the Capitol, that's not okay.
That's
and
right.
as a white person, that just baffles my mind. You know what I mean? Like Like, there were no colored people in that crowd, and I don't mean that in any rude way at all. Everyone was white, and that's not okay, because like, growing up, my parents always taught me, love who you want to like. Love, you shouldn't love someone based off the color of their skin. You know what I mean? So
That's what my
like,
friend says too.
yeah, you shouldn't only just have white friends because you're white. You know, you got to love who you want to love, and like who you're friends with. And that's not okay, just being like, it's like a white supremacist thing. Absolutely. Going up there and trying to storm the Capitol because you're not okay with Biden being president, and the first woman being vice president, and what they want to do. Like, you did your part, you voted, you know what I mean? But that's not okay. Like, you're putting everyone at risk. My aunt lives up there in DC, and she said it's crazy. Like, she has to go to work, and she works in downtown Washington, DC. And she's like, I was scared going to work today. Like, you know, like it's unrest, and it's not okay. Like, go home. You voted for who you want to vote for. Nothing you're gonna do is gonna change the result. In 2 weeks, we're gonna have a new president. That's, you know, whatever. But going in and harming people is not okay at all.
Thank you.
No.
There's a
neither
real
of
quick
you
these
so
point.
much,
people's
Mackenzie,
I
for your
appreciate,
Thank you, Mackenzie.
No,
thank
that
you
was-
so
that
much.
was
I
powerful,
appreciate your
especially
passion.
the part
I
about
appreciate
COVID.
your passion on it, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just gonna
The
say,
part
it's gonna
about
take
COVID,
more
I
younger
thought
people
was
like yourself. Yeah, real quick, Sean. I was just gonna say real quick. It's gonna take more people like yourself, Mackenzie. That was very brave and courageous of you, and it's gonna take a lot of people like yourself, the younger people like yourself, that's white, different culture, that's gonna just continue to bring yourself to awareness and learning, and it's gonna be a different world as you're coming up.
It's your generation that's probably going to say it.
It's our generation. This was my first year voting. You know, last year was my first year voting. And if we don't do anything about it, it's not going to change.
Right.
So,
and we got to talk to each
yes,
other.
there's absolutely, like, I vote as a Republican. That's okay. I'm fine saying that. I voted for who I thought the best candidate was. But there is a lot of issues going on that no one's doing anything about. You know what I mean? Like, white people coming up to the Capitol thinking that they're going to change the results when they're not going to change the results. They did the recount. They did they redid registered votes, whatever, like, with people who weren't biased, you know? But it's not gonna do anything. What am I gonna do in my circle to make a difference? Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. 75% of my friends are white. That's just, how I live in the South, how I was raised. A lot of my friends are also Republicans. Just how I was raised, my circle, my peers, the people I've come in contact with. But it's not okay. And I actually went to dinner last night with one of my friends, and she thought that it was okay. So we had a conversation about it, what's going on. It's not okay, because, there are people who are losing sleep over it. People like that are colored communities don't feel safe going to bed or going to work the next day. That's not okay. So you have to have the conversations with people in your circle, in your family, in your, communities that maybe you might not have the, ability to counter, but you have the ability to counter and have the conversations like, this is not okay. You voted this way, I voted this way, but whatever. This is not okay.
This is
So-
great discussion. Great discussion, Mackenzie. And they said, thank you so much for your comment. And thank you for standing up and representing Caucasians today. Okay. And so this has been a great discussion. Sean, you were going to make a quick point to Mackenzie, and then we're going to go ahead and get ready to end today's broadcast too.
I was going to say that I appreciate the things that she's doing in terms of speaking to her grandmother. That's kind of like the old guard generation where they think how they think. And so for her to make a stand with her grandma and say, no, this is not okay, I think that's a step one. I think the other point that you brought out that's so salient and yet sad is I think it was reported that they had close to 30 to 40,000 people out there. Not everyone had on a mask. And these are the same people who will get COVID, take it back to their homes, to other places, and more people will die because of your selfishness. And so that to me was mind-blowing, because I thought, if they get sick, are you really going to care what color that doctor is? Are you really going to care who that nurse voted for? And yet our hospitals are overwhelmed as we speak. So it just, when you were speaking, it just made me think of all of that. And I really appreciated your perspective.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. Because I mean, this has been a very fruitful discussion. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about Freestyle Friday. Freestyle Friday, we know, is all different topics. So we can continue some more of this discussion tomorrow. We're going to have Joe Duncan on doing some celebrity updates. We're going to have Corinne Brown on sharing fresh tips. We'll have Courtney Jacob from a wellness perspective, and Sean Hall will be right back here again for some political updates and educational updates. So if you want to chime in tomorrow, mute your mics, everyone, real quick for me as I close out. But if you want to chime in tomorrow on tomorrow's discussion during Freestyle Friday, it's open discussion anyway. So join us back here tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please pray for our country. Please pray for the mindsets of the people in our country. Please pray for our leadership, because these are the leaders that are ordained to have rule over us, whatever the reason is, whether it's been allowed for whatever the reason. So we need to come together and pray for more unity and more love in our country, in our world. Please make sure you know that also Quest Church prayer line is happening. Today, I think I've missed majority of it. I'll catch it for about 8 or 9 more minutes, but it's every day, Monday through Friday from 12 to 12:30, 978-990-5000. Access code is 322083#. And that's Monday through Friday. Prayer is happening across the land from Quest Church Prayer to cover people and ask God to put his loving arms around people. Everybody said, great job, Mackenzie. Great job, panel. Thank you so much. And Joseph will be coming back as a guest, but he's going to be coming back to share his musical talents in the future. So thank you so much, Joseph, for being on today. Kodaya said, great job, Mackenzie. I will be here. Thank you for this forum. Okay, I'll kind of and play a few tunes. He's going to play a few tunes. Thank you all for your discussion and your points. Closing comments, because we're going to go ahead and close out, but I want to give each of you a chance to say one closing thing.
One thing real quick to add on to what you're saying, Cal. Make sure the topics have been so heavy in here today that we forgot to tell everybody to like, share, subscribe to the Kim Jacobs Show. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the Kim Jacobs Show. Tell a friend about it. Bring them in. Make sure they're liking, subscribing, and sharing to this and sharing the show as well. And let's keep growing this thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Javon. And oh, you know what? I saw another. I saw 2 more comments, but I feel so bad because I feel like I'm missing people's comments. Great. I try my best. I saw a comment I know I saw one. Oh, here, Katrina, I wanted to put your comment. Knowledge is power, and I believe people have to start at the foundation of what they believe and understand the United States to be. And at the beginning, United States is not a democracy, it's a republic.
Well, it's a
heavy topic.
Yeah, I'll say it quickly. It's a democratic republic, as Alexander Hamilton called it, a democratic republic.
Right.
A pure republic is the People's Republic of China, where chosen representatives without a vote. So we're a democracy in that we vote, we're a republic, and that we have representatives.
Right. And that's a great answer.
That's pretty much it.
That's a great answer in a short time. Thank you, Sean, for the education. My comment come from emotional perspective and ignorance. I know little of the American policy. That's why Sean Hall is my girl. Okay, y'all, listen, we said as much as we can say on today's broadcast. I want to thank Dr. Shante.com. Dr. Shante.com. She wrote a book called Black Angels Among Us. She said, nobody's coming to save you. If you have at least $500 in your pocket, you can be a Black Angel investor. So check out drshante.com. She was one of today's episode sponsors, drshante.com, and doctor is spelled out. And then also Ruby G Butter Cream. I put that in the comments as well. Know that that's one of our episode sponsors, and they're both proud members of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Black Chamber of Commerce. They make 7-Up cakes and you name it, some of the greatest desserts that I've tasted. And I had purchased some of their desserts from the holidays. So check out rubygbuttercream.com, sponsors of the Kim Jacobs Show. Thank you all for being my guest today. Any closing comments, Sean or Joseph or Mackenzie?
Just that we need to pray for our nation.
Wait a minute. Let me put you front and center so I can go ahead, say it.
Just that we need to pray for our nation. Just through peace. Absolutely. Because no matter what happens, God is still in control.
Yes.
100%. God is still in control. But
that's right.
We need to pray. There's never a time that our country needs peace and healing and Jesus is right now.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Mackenzie. Thank you, Joseph.
I agree with what she said, but I get the feeling sometimes that God is saying, I gave you guys books and you're not reading them. I gave you each other and you're not talking to each other. So he's given us the tools, but he can't make us use them. So we have to reach out to each other, because the only way white people will know what black people are going through is if black people tell them. And if when we get to know people, we're less likely to vilify people that we know. So you have to talk to some people that you don't agree with. You have to reach out. But when you reach out, it's going to help that you know some things. And knowledge is power. Reaching out is the vehicle for change.
Okay, great discussion under the 25th Amendment. Okay, that is from Lotus Roche. Sean Hall, say your closing comment and we're going to disconnect.
Hug your children if you have them. Call your mom or your dad if they're still alive. Check on people. They are not okay with what happened. Many people don't have anybody to talk to about what's going on. And sometimes I need to take my own advice to listen more than I speak, because other people have opinions about what's going on too.
Excellent. Okay, well, on that note, everyone, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of The Kim Jacobs Show. If you like these kind of episodes, please subscribe to The Kim Jacobs Show right on my YouTube channel. Turn on your notifications. We're live again tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. on Freestyle Friday, open discussion. So if you didn't get your comments and your questions answered today, pop them back in tomorrow. We're going to be having open discussion for a full hour again at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then next week, we have a full new lineup of new episodes here on The Kim Jacobs Show. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for being so vocal, expressing your views. Thank you to my friend that didn't come on, but took the time to type in-depth discussion points, and everybody's not comfortable to come onto the screen. So I appreciate you. I love you. And I thank you for your comments, even behind the scenes. We are one. We may be different branches, but we're one. So we have to be able to be united. God bless you all. And thank you for tuning in to this edition of The Kim Jacobs Show. God bless you.